You all have exceeded my expectation. And so I've got handouts for the audience, and I had to go up actually and make a few more copies. And so I hope in turn I can exceed your expectations of this workshop, the oral history of poetry. So I'm going to get these handouts passed out. And so I grew up a country boy, surrounded by a lot of storytellers, sitting on the front porch, telling tall tales. And I was one of those kids who was not out playing all the time. I was at the feet of these people, trying to hear who was going to tell the tallest tale. And that was the beginning of me becoming a poet. The oral tradition is information passed down through generations by word of mouth. And it says here, not written down. And it includes historical, cultural traditions, literature, and law. It includes all of those things that we're passing down through the oral tradition. Some of the oral traditions that you may be familiar with are poetry, rhymes, storytelling, riddles, fables, song, comedy, jokes, dance. All of these are considered part of the oral tradition. And people, societies, cultures have used this oral tradition to pass down all of these facts. Of course, one of the greatest in our time was Homer. And I dialed in on him to make a unique comparison between the earliest known orator and poet, or oral poet, and one of our contemporary poets. And so we're looking at Homer here to start. The Greek poet was born around between the 12th and 8th centuries. Some scholars actually believe that he was not an individual. He might have been a collection of poets or storytellers and they named Homer, and they gave him the name. This is one of the greatest myths of literature, if Homer was actually a real person. But certainly we can see in him the attributes of storytellers of that time, of those centuries, and the beginnings of the oral tradition. It says here, midway the sentence here, the stories have repetitive elements, almost like a chorus or refrain. And I think we just heard a perfect example of that when I was listening to Bob, when he was saying in the front of the house, in the side of the house, in the back of the house. That just was like ringing a bell in my soul. And I felt like right then I could actually do exactly what Homer did and what poets of those times did, would be to improvise their poems and take part of what's a refrain like that and tell their own story. So these poems were not memorized verbatim, they were improvised and added to as time went along. So a poet might get up and be telling a story about the first time my baby sister ever got a beating. She took a Coke bottle top and scratched the side of my daddy's shiny, brand new Ford, I think it was powder puff blue.
Oh, no, she didn't.
And she went right down the side. And our house was up off the ground with no foundation, sitting on stilts. And I can remember my dad walking around in the front of the house, in the side of the house, in the back of the house, looking for her. And she got her first whipping. And my dad cried after that because he had never whipped her before. She was the baby. So you see how that works. They're trying to repeat the now again and again. So when something happens in this moment, you are in the now, right? And it's like, wow, you had to be there to hear that, right? But the spoken words attempt is to repeat the now again and again. So he can't repeat the now by doing exactly what was done before. He has to bring part of the now into the then to make it a new now, right? So if you hear a poet recite a poem, and the moment he starts, she's like, oh wow, here's that poem again. Heard that 1,000 times, right? But if he's a good reader, if he's a good spoken word performer, he can take the now and the then and combine that to create a new now, right? That you have a totally different experience. And we do this quite frequently in the pace, with the emotion, drawing off of energy that we get from our audience. It's a give and take situation that helps create this new now with the spoken word performer.